What's up, millennials? Should you close your switchback energy position and should you just look at another stock? Let's find out. 5 days ago, I held a poll on my community tab and I was asking the question, did you own Switchback Energy shares on December 16th of 2020 and did you vote for the merger with ChargePoint? Well, I've had 159 votes in total. About 54% says, no, I didn't own any Switchback Energy shares. I wonder why. And also we had 18% saying, yes, I did own Switchback Energy shares and I voted. Very well, congratulations. But we also had 28% that said, yes, I did own Switchback Energy shares, but no, I did not vote. I actually should do another poll to find out what the reason was for this exactly, but it probably has to do with brokers not being clear, not providing you with instructions, or maybe even charging you money, just like my case was. Well, last Thursday, we had a little call of the founders of Switchback Energy, and they had a call with a guy who was, talking a little bit about the entire situation of voting on SPAC mergers, for example. And he was saying, well, first of all, you have to vote. You have to make sure to vote. If you held shares on December 16th of 2020, on that day alone, not one day after, not one day before, you need to vote. So again, make sure that if you held shares on this day, make sure that you vote on the merger of Switchback Energy with ChargePoint, of course. The conclusion of this talk of the founders of Switchback Energy was pretty simple, actually. It was basically saying, okay, the best thing you can do is to try and reach out to your broker. If you haven't received any instructions on how to vote on the merger, just contact your broker. Now, if you're in Europe, then it might be a little bit more difficult, especially, if you're using European brokers as well. So what they say is, yes, you also need to then contact your European broker. They have their own mechanism to set up for voting, and sometimes it's even much more cumbersome and more difficult than in the US. And I'm sure a lot of US holders are incredulous to hear that there, it could be even more difficult. Well, I experienced this myself as well. Apparently, it's very difficult to vote here in Europe. And my own broker even charges me money for it. It charges me like 10 euros to be able to vote, which of course is not very beautiful. It's not a very good way to democratize the voting system. But hey, I also kind of think that we need a change in the voting system so that everyone can actually vote in a very simple way. But again, make sure to vote if you haven't done so yet. Then another thing that I would like to talk about very briefly, just as a reminder, is the pro forma market cap of ChargePoint. Because I still see many people saying, well, the market cap is so low of this company, it's just 1.4 billion, it's such a cheap company, we should all buy this company. But don't forget that this is just the market cap of the SPAC of Switchback Energy. And Switchback Energy is only going to have a little bit more than 10% of the entire deal. So right now, if we pull up my valuation sheet, you can actually see that based on a price per share, which is right now $37.37, and based on 304.9 million shares outstanding, the current pro forma market cap is $11.4 billion. So make sure you know that. Make sure you know that ChargePoint right now is worth $11.4 billion, which is already quite a bit, of course. And let's also briefly talk about the valuation of ChargePoint as well. I've made a video about this in October in 2020 already, quite a few months ago. And then I said, well, a fair midpoint price per share for ChargePoint would be $24.06. And that was based on the investor presentation of ChargePoint. So basically that was the price that was indicated by the SPAC and the company themselves. But as we can see over here, that was based on a revenue multiple of 4x to 9x. Well, you could, of course, make the case that that multiple should maybe be higher. Maybe the market actually believes that that multiple should be way higher. If we go back to the investor presentation that they provided to us, we can see, for example, that Tesla is trading at a multiple of 10.5x. Enphase is trading at a multiple of 11.8x. So maybe instead of 4 to 9x, so for a low multiple of 4 and a high multiple of 9, maybe we should be looking at multiples of 10x and 12x, for example. And if you do that, the entire valuation is going to change quite a bit as well. So let me actually pull up the Excel sheet that I was using for that valuation. These were the numbers that I used back then, and effectively the midpoint valuation would be $24.05 with that multiple range of 4x on the low end and 9x on the high end. But let's just for funds, change that one to, for example, 10x and 12x. Because Tesla was trading more or less at those multiples, Enphase was trading more or less at those multiples, so maybe ChargePoint should also be trading at those multiples. And that is already going to give you a very, very high or much higher midpoint valuation of $39.24. So you can see that these multiples are going to have a large impact on the price per share of ChargePoint after the merger, of course. You can also say, well, maybe the multiple is not a problem, but maybe we should be looking at a higher revenue because there are going to be certain tailwinds, for example. We see, the investor presentation was published in October. We didn't know that Biden was going to be president just yet. We didn't know that countries and cities were going to ban fossil fuel cars. Maybe we're not going to have just 10% EV adoption, but maybe we're even going to have 20% EV adoption, right? So what could happen is that the revenue number maybe is not going to be just 2 billion in 2026, even though I think 2 billion may be already quite high, but maybe it's even going to be 2.5 billion. So let's see what happens with that number, okay? That's 1 zero too many. So with 2.5 billion, the midpoint valuation would also already raise with about $4.50 to $28.62. So you have all of these variables in these SPAC valuations that impact the price a lot. Because as ChargePoint says themselves as well, their growth is directly proportional to the EV penetration. Here we can see a graph of, well, the passenger EV sales on the left-hand side and the commercial ports annually shipped by ChargePoint on the right-hand side. And we can see that the higher or the more passenger EV sales there are, well, the more commercial ports they are going to ship as well. And this is all based on a EV penetration of 10%, but maybe that is even going to go to 20%. And if that goes to 20%, so double, maybe ChargePoint revenue is also going to double. Who knows, right? So these numbers matter a lot. We just don't know what is going to happen in 2026. A lot of things can happen in 5 years' time. So the valuation just depends on so many variables. But I can't imagine you telling me, yeah, sure, I know that the entire valuation is based on all those variables. What do you think? Well, personally, I think that Switchback Energy, or ChargePoint rather, is currently fairly valued, and I don't think that there's going to be a lot of upside before the merger, but we could even maybe see a little downside happening after the merger. I currently am more of a fan of TPGY, which is going to merge with EVbox. I think their valuation is way better compared to ChargePoint. So if I would be investing right now in EV charging stations and I wouldn't have any stock, any SPAC just yet, I'd probably go for TPGY instead of SBE. Now let's very quickly take a look at the technical analysis of SBE right now, because I use technical analysis a lot to buy and sell. I use it mostly to enter positions and exit positions or take profit on my positions, which I've also done for Switchback Energy. So here you can see all my buys, all these green numbers are my buys, and then all the red numbers are my sells so far. And Switchback Energy has gone from, I think, number 1 position, my largest position, or maybe the second largest position, to about like number 8. And I currently have about 15 holdings that I have for the longer term. So while I've been taking profits in Switchback Energy, I took profits around here at $42.70. I've been adding more and more to TPGY because I am a little bit more confident in that valuation instead of SBE's valuation. I'm currently happy with my Switchback Energy position. I'm actually waiting for what happens after the merger, and if it drops, then I'll probably going to add to my Switchback Energy position or to my ChargePoint position as it's then going to be. But for now, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. If you look at technical analysis, let's just talk about a few things. First of all, we can see that the price is currently staying above this 55 EMA, exponential moving average, which is usually often used as a support. We can see that it was used as support over here in October, November as well. Then it started to come up all the way, had quite a lot of divergence, a big gap between the exponential moving average and price action. And now it's actually right back on top of that 55 EMA. So I'm wondering if this 55 EMA is going to turn into support or if it's actually going to break down further. If you look at the indicators, they've already gone down quite a bit. So it looks a little bit like a so-called bullish reset, which means that price action relatively goes sideways, horizontal, just like we've seen over here in the last couple of months. And meanwhile, we can see that the indicators are going down, so they're resetting, if you will, and then at some point we can see a breakout to the upside rather at some point in the future. But again, the merger is, of course, going to be way more important probably than the technical analysis right now. So everything is going to depend on what is going to happen on next Thursday. So back to that comment, should you close your position? Should you look elsewhere? Well, I think ChargePoint is still a very good company to hold for the long term. If you're a long-term investor, you shouldn't be worried, I believe. In the short term, anything can happen, of course, especially with the merger. Often, as we've seen in previous videos as well, after SPAC mergers, price usually does go down a bit. So that could happen in the short term. But again, I think long-term, ChargePoint is a beautiful company to hold. If you're looking for other companies in the EV charging station sector, then I would definitely recommend you to go to TPGY to check out that stock to see if you actually like that one. So again, should you close your position? Well, of course, that's not up to me, that's up to you. I'm not a financial expert, I can't advise you in anything like that, but I do hope that the information provided in this video has been helpful to you to make your own decision. So let me know in the comments, what are you going to do? Are you going to hold Switchback Energy shares? Are you going to buy more? Are you going to sell? Are you going to wait after the merger? Let me know in the comments. With that being said, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to vote, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!